Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each Thursday, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Pro-Choice OH. Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Gabe.
Hi, I'm Jaime.
Hi, I'm Randi. And this week, Donald Trump has decided to take out one of his, he doesn't have many surrogates. They talk about how he definitely has a deficit and Hillary has all
You're
these other
saying
people.
people don't want to represent Donald Trump?
You know, something like that.
Please continue.
I know. So, but he does have his kids.
They're kind of required.
Yeah, exactly. Who are required to do it. Although they're probably happy to do it. I mean, it is technically their
They're getting
father,
paid.
so.
Yeah.
Are they getting paid?
I'm sure they're getting paid.
You think so?
They're taking money. If you want to call it payment, you want to call it allowance, whatever you want to call it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, they each have VP titles. They're getting paid. They're on the payroll.
Yeah. I mean, I know they work with the Trump organization. You think the campaign pays them too?
They have campaign titles.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like the
Okay.
Trump son is VP of something. And
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's
okay.
one of the biggest accusations is that the Trump campaign money is being used to purchase things from the Trump businesses. So they have a big schmancy event, and really it's just they're taking campaign dollars and giving it to the venue where they're holding the event at, which is owned by Donald Trump.
Exactly. Yeah, I know that was sort of
happens
a big thing
Right.
when they like went up. They were like using renting
Yeah.
at the Trump Tower, and then their rent for the campaign went up like 3 times what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's shady.
Once he started raising.
Sorry,
But
that wasn't your
anyway.
point. Please continue.
But anyway, so this week, because Donald Trump's he's been trying to reach out to African Americans, but really that whole thing was to reach out to, white suburban women, independent, who, sometimes vote Democrat, sometimes vote Republican. And basically that was his signal to them like, hey, I'm not a racist, which if you all believe that, then I don't know what to say about you, but so don't believe that. But anyway, so this week he directly appealed to them by toting out this maternity leave plan. It's specifically maternity leave, so it doesn't apply to fathers. But Trump's philosophy on parenting anyway is that fathers don't parent. That's the woman's job. He said very clearly that he doesn't change diapers or do stuff like that. Like that's the woman's job.
Right.
So, I know stay-at-home dads. I know stay-at-home dads, who who are doing all the work, and, the wife, for whatever reason, because she's making more and childcare is so expensive, at this point in time, because it is so expensive, somebody has to stay at home, because even if you have 2 incomes, that's probably still not going to cover like mortgage bills. You probably got student loan payments, car payments, and then another $1,000 for childcare. So one of y'all probably gonna have to stay home. Right. And again, with this one, it's if you happen to be the woman who's making more money and your husband doesn't make as much as you, this plan is not gonna help you. Because why would the parent who makes less money then stay at their job and the other one stays home? But if that's the situation you're in, because again, it's strictly maternity leave, it's not family leave.
Right.
Which I'm like, I don't even understand why you wouldn't just make it family leave so that then the family can decide which one of them, is going to stay at home. But again, his philosophy, and I'm sure that's partly why. And also people made the point that now, because if you only have maternity leave, then of course, as an employer, you're going to think, okay, this woman, like she has kids, then she's going to take, advantage of the maternity leave. And whereas if you hire a man, there is no paternity leave or family leave. So he can't take time off.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they were actually saying, I was reading something this morning about it, that, you talk about the need for family leave or maternity leave in this case, and it actually is the paternity part of family leave, paternity leave, that actually increases gender equity in the workplace. It isn't the maternity leave. It's actually giving fathers the time off. But also, actually, his daughter, who was stumping for this, I was reading actually a really good Cosmopolitan article. They do a really good job of political coverage.
I read it.
And there was an interview with his daughter about it, and they specifically like, so two gay men adopt a baby, they can't take any time off. And she was like, well, the details are on the website, but I mean,
the answer was no.
The answer was no.
Yeah.
Well, and the other piece of this is, so, it's 6 weeks of some kind of paid through the unemployment. Again, this is a Trump plan. Yeah. So, it's not a real plan. It's some words spoken out loud that don't make sense entirely. So 6 weeks of paid in some way through unemployment compensation.
6 weeks.
Yeah, which is the amount of time physically it takes your body to recover.
Yes.
It can take 6 to 8 weeks if you have a C-section. So, you may not actually be medically cleared to go back to work until 8 weeks later.
Right.
So, there's 2 more weeks that she doesn't have. But then beyond that, it has, a stay-at-home mom tax credit, which you're only going to take if you make a ton of money.
Yeah, it only starts at, so this plan,
it starts at all of them. It starts at all of them. But the thing is that once you get to such a low tax bracket where you're paying such little tax, you can't get credits.
No, exactly. So it doesn't help you.
And
oh, sorry.
Randy has the problem.
It's a bullshit plan.
Yeah. So the child care tax credit and the stay-at-home mom only tax credit, it doesn't help low income families that probably aren't paying a lot of taxes in the first place because they're probably earned income tax credit families and those kinds of things. So, you've got somebody making minimum wage, barely getting by, having to pay these huge child care bills. They will get absolutely nothing out of the Donald Trump plan.
Nothing.
But this family making $250,000 every year, putting their kid in fancy private preschool and private school. It actually is a tax credit for putting your kid in some fancy private school.
Of course.
Yeah. So, you're sending your kid to some country day school and you're getting a tax credit for it, where this barely getting by, working class woman gets absolutely nothing out of the Trump plan, which sounds like a Trump plan to me.
Exactly.
So that's his maternity leave plan.
Yeah. It's incredibly important to, and this is not to take anything away from maternity leave, but it's incredibly important to also express, what paternity leave means. And I say that as somebody who has 2 kids. And when my second child was born, I said to my employer, hey, my wife's pregnant. She's going to have a baby. I would like to take some time off, and was told there's no such thing as a paternity leave program here. This is your vacation time that you have allotted. You can use your vacation time. We'll authorize you to take, a vacation.
To take care
and
of
it wasn't any form of paid family leave. It was paid because it was my vacation time.
Okay.
So, that's time that any person has that they could use as a vacation. It was not.
How much vacation time do you most people only get 2 or 3 weeks vacation
I
a
had
year.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So when our second child came home, I had to use my 2 weeks of vacation time. So, there was.
And that was it.
Yeah. And then when the holidays roll around and you want to take some time in between Christmas and New Year's,
you've already taken
that time was taken.
Yeah.
And so it's something that many employers don't even think about. But, the first 2 weeks after having a child are incredibly important to be either at home or more likely at the grocery store. Running some errands.
Yeah.
It takes ideally, it takes a family to make a family.
Yes.
And having that partner available and not having to be chained to their desk all day is really critical. So, paid paternity leave, absolutely.
Well,
I'm like, let's just not put a gender on it. Let's just have paid family leave.
I agree.
And you can use it how you want to use it.
And then families could take the 6, if they wanted to, both of them could stay home for the first 2 weeks and then one could go back for another 4. And then you could take the other 4 at the end of the 6 so that somebody was home. Because a lot of daycares don't take kids until they're 12 weeks old.
Exactly.
So what is that woman going to do at the end of her 6 weeks?
Right.
where she's got another 6 weeks before a daycare is even going to accept her child into daycare. But it also, again, and there was another story in the news this week that kind of backs this one up, just shows how our society doesn't value dads. It's this whole idea that dad's babysitting his kids at home, or, you know, dad isn't a valuable co-parent to these children. We saw it, you know, with Chelsea Clinton this week too, when the Fox had a thing up on their Facebook page talking about how Chelsea Clinton was a bad mom because she was out campaigning for her mom on her 2-year-old daughter's first day of preschool. And oh my God, her dad had to take her.
Oh my God. What a travesty.
What a travesty. Her dad walked her to preschool in New York City when she was 2 on her first day of preschool.
I don't understand this. 2-year-olds don't go to preschool. Okay. 2-year-olds go to daycare. They go to a babysitter, child care provider. Preschool is like the year or 2 years before kindergarten.
Yeah, I thought.
So we're talking like 4 or 5 here.
Okay.
A 2-year-old.
Yeah.
This is New York City.
Preschool.
This is New York City. So it was probably a competitive process where you had to beat out 50 other families to get into some prestigious preschool that'll determine which you know college your kid goes to in 16 years.
I don't think a Clinton had to struggle to beat out anybody.
No.
Spot in school.
Oh,
but I'm objecting to the classification of this as preschool.
2 does seem young for preschool.
And going somewhere to color and
for this daughter to be taken somewhere by her father is
Yeah.
not a bad thing in any circumstances.
Yeah.
No, my dad was like my primary caregiver because he had time off. Like he worked a much more flexible job. So if I got sick at school or those kinds of things, or he didn't work in a hospital, my mom worked in a hospital. So her shift started at 6:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it was my dad that braided my hair that was at that point way longer than it is currently. And, you know, took me to school every morning and those kinds of things. And, you know, that was a strong relationship. And it was a really great relationship in my childhood. To like deride dads for, you know, taking care of their kids is just, it's so ridiculous. And I hate when I see it. So
it is.
Go dad.
Yes. Go dads.
We're trying. Okay. So you guys missed a really awesome concert.
I watched on the live stream.
It was totally badass.
I was legitimately
so sad you cannot pronounce medium difficulty
legitimately
words.
I was legitimately angry when I saw the pictures from the concert and I knew that I was not there, obviously. But fine. Go ahead and tell us about the amazing time that you had.
This was badass. In Cleveland, the all access concert. I'm not even apologetic. It was amazing. They had national acts there. Sia, who I don't personally listen to, but I've seen her on Saturday Night Live. What's funny, if you watch the Saturday Night Live clip, she's introduced by that week's host, Donald Trump.
Which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, really great, totally, you know, awesome singing talent. And Leslie Jones was just really hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, just standing up there, ripping through a comedy routine. The absolute highlight of the night, though, for us was seeing, first off, 3 really powerful women telling their abortion stories. One of which was Mallory from Preterm. So, you know, a friend of ours from here in the state of Ohio. Renee Bracey Sherman and MJ Flores were the other 2, each, you know, presenting really great stories. So that was amazing to see. I was able to get a press pass. So as each of these people were speaking or as these acts were going on, I was like wandering around the floor with a big camera, shooting a bunch of pictures. We'll put them on our blog. But I was able to work my way up to towards the front where our executive director, Kelly Copeland, was sitting right after Mallory told her story. And it was just waterworks, tears flowing. She was like the proudest mama bear ever.
That is too great.
Just, you know, seeing these stories get told. And we're going to give the That's What She Said to Jessica Williams, the Daily Show star who was the MC of the event, who referred to our Patients to Advocates group as an abortion supergroup. They stood up. They shared a poem that they had written. You know, so often, since I started working with Planned Parenthood back in 2008, so many events have been, this is a women's health event, which is great, and people are supporting, right for somebody to get a well woman exam, or, maybe it's a right for, sexual freedom, LBGT rights, seeing gay marriage get legalized here in the country. All of these things have been really great. But this was an abortion rights event. There was absolutely no, dialing it down. We weren't hiding behind any language. This was for abortion rights. I've never seen anything like this anywhere in the country. In the past decades. It was totally badass.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, the patients advocates, when they came on stage, I mean, I was watching on my iPad at home, and it looked so impressive even on the video feed. And they just set them up in such a powerful way, and it really did show their individual power, and it's funny because that program was one that we heard about. Kelly and I heard about at a conference in Chicago like 7 years ago now. Because the Chicago Abortion Fund did something similar to it, not quite the same. And at that point, we're like, oh my God, I love that. I want to do that. And, it wasn't until, Preterm really emerged as a more advocacy partner, and New Voices Cleveland came in, that we were really able to do something, because you need the right partners in a group like that. So, when we got New Voices Cleveland in, and Preterm was more active, and the RCRC was more active, it kind of felt like the right time to do this. And, I was thinking recently, I was like, I don't know that we, thought 6 years ago that when we eventually implemented the program, they would be sharing the stage with Sia and Leslie Jones and all those people, telling their stories to a nationally broadcast audience. The other really hilarious thing is that, the anti-choice groups have really kind of gone all like crazy about all this stuff. And, there was one comment on one of their Facebook pages that they looked up the event and they didn't know what it was. They almost got tickets for it. Oops. And then they looked it up and they realized what it was about. And it was all about abortion access. It wasn't even pro-choice. It was about access to abortion. And oh my God. And I'm like, I'm glad you got the point. Thanks. And the funniest part is, I've been at things before where we've been talking about, more broadly the pro-choice issue. And the people have crashed our events several times. We're like, why don't you stop hiding behind pro-choice and just say what you're for? And of course, I always then say, I'm totally pro-abortion. Like, I really want people to have access to abortion when they need access to abortion. And so, now we've done what they've been screaming at us to do forever. And they're like, oh my God.
I don't understand why they act like abortion access is some far leap from being pro-choice. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, okay.
Right.
So it was a great, really out loud abortion kind of event. And it was, and the place was, full. It was, there were tons of people in all the pictures, and, the crowd noise supporting, because you expect an audience to be like, for Leslie Jones and Sia and everything else. Yeah. But, the storytellers got the same amount of applause as the acts did. These were not a bunch of people who were, duped into a Sia concert. These were, hardcore supporters who really did believe in the message of the show.
Right. Incredibly powerful. Check out our blog, NARALPro-ChoiceOhio.com. We'll have, if you go to the blog post in the show notes for this episode, we recorded about 10 minutes of Facebook Live video with the 3 storytellers. They were very gracious to come and hang out with me before the show. So we recorded them kind of talking about why it was important for them to share their story a little bit more than what even they gave on the stage. So we'll have that in the show notes, along with all the pictures that I took from right up front, in front of the front row, as Leslie Jones just screaming her way through. Just really, I mean, it was kind of like what I visualized being at a Richard Pryor concert. I mean, just a comedian who is at the top of their game, just letting it fly. It was amazing. I'm sorry.
I'm like, Gabe wants me to hit him right now.
I think he might. But I think
it was
he's
so
working
bad
on it for sure.
We get it. It was amazing.
It was.
Yeah.
And I was getting rained on.
Yes. Not only were you at hot times, you were getting rained on at hot times.
Yeah, the protesters outside this event were getting rained on too. There was a nasty storm that swept through right when it was starting, and I was like, there's people outside holding up signs. That's a damn shame.
Why didn't God protect them?
Yes.
And other interesting news this week on Monday, we got a little bit of a surprise. We knew that the Attorney General was going to rule on whether or not this new ballot initiative that we talked about last week was able to continue with signature collection. If you missed last week, Ohio had introduced, some crazy people in Ohio had introduced an amendment that would be on the ballot at some point when they collected enough signatures. Never was going to be this year because they were too late for this year.
Right.
That would have reclassified abortion as aggravated murder in Ohio. It also included many forms of birth control and many processes of fertility treatments. So your IUD makes you a murderer, just so you know, under this plan. So in order to get qualified for the ballot, you had to have the AG approve your summary language as valid, that it represents the actual amendment, and you had to turn in 1,000 valid signatures, which is the key word in that sentence, valid. They turned in 1,006, which anybody who
1006.
Yes.
Needed 1,000, turned in 1,006.
Anyone who's ever does ballot initiatives know you need at least a 25% pad, if not a solid 50% pad on that, especially when you get in the higher ones. The lower ones probably get a 25. So they really should have turned in, about 1,250. But anyway, they failed to actually reach the 1,000. They had like 846 valid signatures.
Right.
The AG did not rule on the language. We'll have to go back and do that again when they turn in their 1,000 signatures again. But yeah, they need to go back to the drawing board and start all over again with their 1,000 signatures. Which
I thought they only have to get the laws really. The laws 150 or something.
No, the law's really unclear. I actually read it back again, and it really is unclear. I think it's because people usually don't fail at getting 1,000 petition signatures when they're going to have to do 300.
Yeah.
But I went back. So when you turn in the full number, you have 10 days to collect additional ones and kind of refile.
Okay.
But that doesn't exist in the code section for the initial 1,000. So I don't think that applies. And the AG didn't write that in his letter, and he usually does. So I don't think that counts. And multiple news reports have said they've got to start over again. The law's a little hinky. I don't know if they could, because they have those signatures, if they could keep those signature books and just, because if they were a good campaign, they made copies of all those, which I'm sure they probably didn't because they don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's a lot of effort to copy all of those.
Yeah.
So I think the important takeaway here is that this was rejected by the Attorney General's office, but it was not Mike DeWines saying, no, I reject this proposal.
Of course not. Yeah.
This was math.
Yes.
They needed 1,000. They did not have 1,000. They're going to try again. That's the important point, is that this thing, because it did not pass the first hurdle, doesn't mean that it's dead. They're going to give it more effort. These people did not come up with this thing just sitting around. They got
all the time in the world.
Yeah,
they do.
They ain't got shit else to do.
Other than sit outside of an abortion clinic and scream at women. So, collecting petition signatures is a way better hobby than that.
Yes.
So this is not going away, and this was not a rejection from Mike DeWine.
No.
In the sense of what we normally take to be the meaning of the word rejection.
Yeah.
So they missed the hurdle.
Technicality, basically.
Yeah.
Yes.
So something to keep watching out for. A decision that Mike DeWine did make last week, which is actually something where he was making a choice, a really stupid choice, is Ohio Attorney General Mike DeWines appealing the decision that is currently assisting to keep Capitol Care open, Toledo's last abortion clinic. They've won now 2 decisions in a row from the Lucas County judge in the 6th District court up there, saying that the state's transfer agreement requirements are complete crap. I wish that was the word the judge used, but
Yeah.
but what
He
they
pretty much said that. I mean, he may not have actually said completely crap, but
yeah.
that's what he
But
basically said.
the 6th district was using the whole women's health Supreme Court decision as guidance.
Yeah.
So they're saying, hey, the high court just gave us very, crystal clear language on how to interpret this law. The state does, the state's transfer agreement requirements don't meet it. This is unconstitutional. So the 6th district referred to it as unconstitutional using brand new Supreme Court guidance. Mike DeWine is saying, no, I don't think so. That's my Mike DeWine voice. And he's appealing this to the state Supreme Court. So Mike DeWine gets a walk of shame this week.
So it's basically like you're still trying to appeal the whole women's health case. Like,
yeah.
You're basically still trying to say that these restrictions are medically necessary and they're not an undue burden, but it's already been determined that they are.
Right. So he's going to spend taxpayer dollars and keep smacking his head against a wall that we now know to be brick.
Yes.
You ain't getting through.
When do we get to the point of when? I mean, would they have to take their specific case to the Supreme Court in order to get to a point where it'd be like, okay, we've already determined that this is not like this is an undue burden. Like when would we get to the point of being like, okay, this is over and done with?
Well,
like you lost.
This case can't go to the U.S. Supreme Court because it was filed in state court. So the highest court that they can go to with this case is the state Supreme Court.
Okay.
Which is ugly.
Yeah.
Ugly court.
Even with them, they would still have the precedent that the Supreme Court already.
Yes and no. And the fact that the state court works a little differently. So there's some legal technicalities there that will bore the crap out of our listeners that we can talk about later. But I mean, and the thing is, like, they didn't just rule on whole women's health. They made 2 other state constitutional arguments in this too. Number one, that this was put in the budget bill.
Yeah.
This requirement that abortion clinics have transfer agreements was put in the Ohio budget, and the Ohio Constitution says you can only have 1 subject per bill.
Right.
So, regulating abortion clinics has absolutely nothing to do with creating a state budget and guidance for how the state spends its money. 2 completely different subjects. So they ruled on that. The court ruled in our favor on that as well. Said that it did very much violate the single subject rule. And then she also, Jennifer Branch, the attorney for the case, also argued that the transfer agreement gives a third party basically the power to grant or deny the license. So, the saying that the Ohio Department of Health is unconstitutionally abdicating their responsibility on this licensing to this third party, which is the hospital, because if they can't get a transfer agreement with the hospital, they can't get a license.
Exactly.
Right. So the hospital really holds the power where ODH should hold the power.
Yeah.
And again, we won on that. She actually argued a third argument, and the court was like, we've already ruled against you 3 times, so we're just not even going to deal with this down here.
Yeah.
So they lost 3 separate arguments in 2 separate courts now, and DeWine is continuing this. So in order to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, what would have to happen is, and could happen is, if we lose at the state Supreme Court level, this case could then be filed in federal court. Because we filed this in state court because we hadn't gotten the whole women's health. I mean, this case is multiple years old.
Yeah.
And before whole women's health, the undue burden standard really was not something that the Supreme Court was upholding in any way, shape, or form. Nothing was an undue burden. 24, 72-hour waiting periods. All of this stuff really wasn't being ruled in a way that was helpful to us.
Yeah.
So, when the lawyers evaluated, where to take this case, they thought that the state court case was a much stronger case. And now we've won twice on it. So yeah, it's a strong case. But so now we could, depending on what happens to state court, then go into federal court and kind of start this whole process over again, taking multiple years and those kinds of things. So yay for Mike DeWine wasting my taxpayer dollars.
Skippy.
I mean, he's already had to pay $2.1 million because of the gay marriage case.
Yeah.
The state had to pay $2.1 million for that.
Right.
And then he had to pay Planned Parenthood like $43,000 last year because he said those ridiculous things and threatened to sue Planned Parenthood on the fetal tissue stuff, but then he lost on that, so he had to pay the lawyer fees of $43,000 on that. So, just how much of my taxpayer dollars is Mike DeWine, going to personally spend on his personal crusade against abortion providers?
Exactly.
Right.
Unfortunately, we're not the only state that's doing it too. It's a lot of cash-strapped states.
Right.
As they say, spending unnecessary money on trying to fight abortion restrictions.
Right. Well, DeWine wants to run for governor, so
he's gonna keep on going and keep on going.
Well, and him spending taxpayer dollars to fight losing battles is going to be something that'll be continued to be discussed.
But the people, they've done polls, the people don't even want defunding of Planned Parenthood, and the people even though they might be in what they call the mushy middle, the most of them are still pro-choice in some fashion. I don't.
7 and 10. 7 and 10.
So I'm like, who is these people that they're trying to I guess Trump's people. What
Republican primary voters, because that's what he needs to become the candidate in the first place. Yeah.
That's all I can say. Bless their heart.
All right, Randy, take us home.
Yes. On that note, we have a lot of work to do to make sure these people, we can't do anything about Mike DeWine right now, but there's work we can do to make sure other pro-choice champions are put into office, make sure they stay in office, and make sure we don't let the people who are against us get into office. So that's why we started our volunteer rewards program. And we've been phone banking here in Columbus, Dayton, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toledo. You can reach us at volunteer@prochoiceohio.org. And you're going to get rewards for putting in volunteer hours. And again, the polls are tightening here. Right now, I think Rob Portman is up in Ohio.
A significant amount.
Yeah, a very significant amount, which is not good. I don't know what the polls right now between Trump and Hillary.
It's pretty even. There've been one that oversampled Republicans that showed Trump up, and there was one that oversampled Democrats that showed Hillary up. So I'm going to take that one as a wash.
Yeah, the phrase you're looking for is dead heat.
Yeah, dead heat.
Basically a dead heat, which is not good. No. So we have a lot of work to do. So again, contact us, volunteer@prochoiceohio.org, and we got to put some work in.
Yeah, because we talk about the ballot initiative, which we've started calling the Trump amendment, because it really is. Right. Because in order for that ever to see the light of day legally, Trump needs to become president, and he needs to put people on the Supreme Court. He could, the next president's going to put up to 3, maybe even 4 people onto that court.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want that to be Donald Trump? Because the people with that ballot initiative very much do. Yeah. Because they need those judges in order for that to happen. So
I'm sure you all don't hate making phone calls as much as you would hate having Donald Trump as your president.
Exactly.
So put some work in for these next 2 months, and then I'll leave you alone for a little while.
Not really, because then we go to lame duck. You got to hang out for another 6 weeks until December 15th, and then we can all go have a break.
I'll leave you alone. Okay, good.
It never ends. Okay. On that note, we'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.